All right, welcome back, guys. Today we are going to continue to talk about inequalities. Today we're going to talk about how to actually graph them on our own. On yesterday in the presentation, you learned how to determine how the symbols were graphed. So you learned to determine if you use a solid or a dashed line and if you should shade above or below. All of the forms today are going to be familiar to you because we have talked about slope-intercept form, point slope, and standard form. So the way that we graph them is not going to change. The only thing that's going to be different is the line that we use to connect them and then the shading. So you should recall that if we wanted to graph something that is in slope-intercept form, we have the M and the B, which is enough information to graph. Remember, the B is your y-intercept and it tells us where to begin. So for this graph, or for this inequality, we would begin here at -3 on the y-axis. Then we would use our slope to determine how to move. Our slope is 1/2, so that tells us that we would go up 1, right 2, and then we would continue that until we had enough dots to make a line. After we have our points, this is where we use the information from yesterday. We read this symbol as less than or equal to. So that means that we would connect this with a solid line because of the equal to, and because it is less than, we would shade below the line, so we would shade this bottom portion of the graph. The second form is point slope form. Again, point slope form is nice to graph from because we have all the information that we need. We have our slope, which is going to tell us how to move, and then we have the coordinates of a point on the line, which is going to tell us where to start. So if this is my inequality that I want to graph, we start by writing the point. Remember that when you write the point, you're going to use the opposite x and y values. So I'm going to use the point +3, +2, and I'm going to plot that. And then my m is in front of the parentheses, so our slope is -1/2. So we're going to go down 1, right 2, and we have enough to make a graph. We look at our symbol. This is greater than or equal to. So we're going to have a solid line, and this time it's greater than, so I'm going to shade above the line. Let's try that one more time. We start by finding the point, so we use the opposite of x and the opposite of y. So we're going to get -6, +5. Then we use our slope, which is 1/3, so we're going to go up 1/3. This time the symbol here is less than, so we're going to have a dashed line. And because it is less, we're going to shade below the line. So everything in this bottom area is going to be the solution. So this time we had a dashed line and we shaded below. The last form is standard form. Standard form is the one that we cannot graph from because it does not give us enough information. We don't have our slope and we cannot graph without it. So what we need to do is we need to convert. So in order for us to convert this, we're going to change it from standard form and put it into slope-intercept form. We're going to start by moving the x to the right side of the equation. Remember, if you cross the line, change the sign, so that becomes a -4x. Now your inequality looks like this. And then to get the y alone, we're just going to divide each piece by 2. And we end up with this final inequality. It is in slope-intercept form. So then we could just use the steps from the beginning of the slide to graph using the M and the B. Take a look at that one more time. Again, we start off in standard form. We want to move the x to the other side. And then we're going to have to get the y alone. Now, this is where you also want to be careful because you recall from inequalities that if you divide by a negative number, then you're going to have to flip that inequality. So this starts off as y being greater, but after we divide by a negative, it's actually y is less than. And so this time we are going to have a dash line and we will shade below. But now that it is in slope-intercept form, we could use the M and the B here to draw that line and to graph. All right, so what you should be able to do is graph a line, whether it is in point slope, standard, or slope-intercept form, and then decide if that line is going to be shaded, dashed, or silent.